Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys are having a good day. Today we are back in the trading hall, but we're not going to be spending too much time here. This is just a way to introduce today's episode because I have been thinking a little bit more about what we can do now we've introduced TNT duplication into the series. It's something that I've been waiting on for a little while, but it really does open up a lot of avenues when it comes to automated farms for things. Now that TNT has a 100% drop rate for items and blocks, it means that we can basically use it to do a lot of automated farming for us, and having a permanently, infinitely reproducible source of TNT means that we don't spend so much resource making it in the first place. And to that end, we're going to be using TNT to farm some unusual stuff over the next little while, and some usual stuff as well. We'll probably look into stuff like cobblestone farms and things like that. But one of the things I would really like to use TNT for is a little bit silly, it's a little bit unorthodox, and it's probably not a farm you will see in many other places, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that is books. Now, librarians are a really great source of emeralds because of a trade loop you can exploit with their bookshelf trade versus their book trade. Right now, a bookshelf, a set of 3 bookshelves that would normally cost me 6 emeralds from a librarian, can be traded for a single emerald. So it's possible for me to obtain stacks upon stacks of bookshelves very, very quickly. With a large group of librarians like this, or even a single librarian who refreshes his trades as frequently as they do, I've already got close to 100 in fact, over 100 bookshelves. I've got 108 bookshelves there for the price of just over half a stack of emeralds. And considering that a single book can be traded for 1 emerald, and we have 108 bookshelves here, each of which will give us 3 books when it is broken down, I'm looking at 324 emeralds there, out of an investment of maybe 36 emeralds to begin with. It is enormously lucrative as a way of getting emeralds, but of course, that means destroying the bookshelves en masse. And obviously you can do that with an axe, and I believe if you have an efficiency 5 axe and a beacon, you can insta-mine bookshelves. So if I wanted to set up a beacon around here with haste 2, we could insta-mine bookshelves and get them all back very quickly. But where would be the fun in that? Would it really be Minecraft if we couldn't make a weird automated farm for this? I think not. And so today, we're going to look into making a TNT-powered farm that is going to turn bookshelves into books for us. And we are going to make this something pretty special because I'm planning on using a TNT duplicator and a little bit of zero-ticking technology to make this a super fast farm that's going to be able to get us books from bookshelves in the blink of an eye and a very short explosion. The real question is, where are we going to build this farm? And I'm thinking we might end up repurposing this quarry as a site where we can blast out a few things. It's also within spitting distance of the trading hall, and I don't really have a room inside the trading hall that I want to put TNT duplicators and stuff like that. We could kind of put it around the back somewhere or underground, but I also don't feel like digging out such a large area. Of course, now we have TNT duplicators, we don't necessarily need to do much digging, but I think somewhere like this would be a good testing ground for it, and then maybe a little bit later on we can find a more permanent place for it. But for now, I want to do it somewhere out in the open, somewhere it's easy for you guys to follow what I'm doing. And yeah, we're going to build it inside this quarry for the moment. I might tidy the area up a little bit first though. So I've done a little bit of clearing out off camera just to get the basic outline of this water pool in here, because this 9x9 pool with a single hopper in the center is what's going to be collecting all of the books that we're going to get. And there is a cave nearby, so if you hear zombie or spider noises, don't worry, not in any trouble, hopefully. Anyway, so what we're going to be doing is using some very clever zero-ticking pistons to be able to transfer books around this circuit as fast as possible. And we're going to be doing this with books, but this is actually a circuit you can use for a concrete powder farm, or possibly even a tree farm if you have the right kind of tree growth mechanics and you can compact it down into a small enough space. I'm going to be showing you a couple of really interesting setups with zero-ticking pistons, so pay attention to this. It's going to be really worthwhile to have a watch of. So on one side over here, we're going to have books fed in by the player. Basically, the input system is just going to be standing here, holding down the right mouse button, and then you would be placing bookshelves pretty much constantly, because all of the movement of these bookshelves is going to be done using pistons. And we've done something like this before in our concrete maker, but the zero-ticking here is what makes it super fast. So of course, we're going to be placing the bookshelves against a piston head here, and we're going to be transferring some redstone power into that piston head via a redstone torch that's going to be stuck on a block block right below it. Then we do something a little bit clever, because over here we have a cobblestone or whatever building block we want to use there, and that's going to activate the piston, right? Seems pretty straightforward, but it's not zero ticking it yet, because zero ticking actually happens if you end up powering a second piston that updates this piston as it's pushing something out. And you do that just by placing a piston over the top there and having it on top of an adjacent block to this redstone dust, which is actually going to power this piston up here. So now, if I place a bookshelf here, it happens twice as fast, because the piston head here is actually updating that piston faster. So if I hold down the button now, that actually moves super, super quickly. That's actually a lot faster than it would be if we just had this piston here and we were doing it this way. Obviously, that's a really bad example because the line just ran out of space there. But if I take out some of these, probably lose a couple into the hopper, and we'll collect those up in just a second. Compare the speeds if we do this to the speeds if we do this. So naturally, we can use the same circuit to have the pistons move the bookshelves around corners. Let's set one up here, for example. We can do the same thing with our redstone torch, our piston facing that way. And we'll need to place this block on the opposite side because, of course, if we placed it there, then the books coming along here would just knock the redstone dust off the top. But we'll place that there, we'll add a block of cobblestone there, and we'll add a piston facing this way, like so. And hopefully this should work now. If I stand here and place a few bookshelves, the same thing happens on this side. Did that piston fire, though? Nope, doesn't look like that piston fired. Okay, so what we need to do is check the zero ticking direction of this piston here, and we might end up having to do this a slightly different way. If we place the redstone torch under here, for example, we could maybe use it that way. If we put the piston underneath here, like so, we can still have the redstone dust on top of here, but now let's see if that, yeah, okay, that zero ticks it, you see? So the piston needs to be on either the top or the bottom, and I don't know for certain if this is a directional thing, if it has to do with chunk boundaries or not. That's chunk borders, there we go. So it doesn't seem to, so I'm not quite sure why it sometimes works that way. It's one of those quirks of the update order. But now, as you'll see, if we end up placing some books here, those are moving around fast as you like, and as fast as this piston can push them, they are getting pushed around a corner. But we need to ideally blow up as many bookshelves as we can with a single blast of TNT. Not because we have to preserve TNT or anything, but because it's probably going to be slightly more efficient that way. Not to mention, if the TNT blows up next to this ring of bookshelves, it'll be blowing up next to these redstone components, and that could break the entire machine. What we need to do, much the same as we did with our concrete maker, is to channel all of the bookshelves downwards. And what we're actually going to do is build a bunch of these zero ticking pistons up in the sky above here so that the bookshelves can be driven downwards towards this pool of water, and that's where they get blown up by the TNT. In order to set up some downwards facing zero ticking pistons, because they will need to be zero ticking to keep up with the input here, this is actually something that's a little bit more technical, a little bit more difficult, because what we need to do is, of course, apply a power source to the bookshelf here, but the power source can't come from below, which is the only way we could power it using a redstone torch. So instead, the power is going to have to come directly from the side here, and we're going to do that with a block of redstone right now and a redstone comparator. We're actually going to be changing this up a little bit, but this will work for now. It could be a repeater, it could be a comparator. It just has to directly, strongly power this block so that some redstone current can come out of the other side. Then we're going to be using some glass, because glass can now actually hold redstone, and I'm going to be placing red glass here just so it's clear that this is the glass the redstone is sat on, because one fun quirk of redstone in this version at least is that it cannot be seen from below through glass. So you might not actually be able to tell, aside from the texture going up the side of the glass block, that redstone is even there. I guess we have some particles and stuff as well, but just so you know, yeah, the glass here denotes that there is redstone wire traveling up it. And at this point, we can have a piston facing downwards, and that will, of course, move this whole setup at the same rate. But by having a piston facing upwards on top of here as well, whenever a bookshelf moves into this position, it now gets zero ticked, because the piston up here is being powered by the same redstone current as is powering this piston. The two of them fire at once, and that updates this piston faster than it would update otherwise, allowing us to zero tick these bookshelves downwards. Unfortunately, this system has a couple of problems with it, and they mostly come when you try and lay these things side by side, because of course the redstone connects like this, and once we have something in place, let's say there, it powers this whole setup, but because the redstone current is no longer flowing into the pistons here, it's no longer flowing directly that way, it actually curves around to meet the circuit next to it. It stops powering either of those two pistons, and you're no longer able to do it. So this whole setup is not tileable, and we would have to space it out by one block each time if we wanted to do this. And of course, look who showed up. With only one llama today, apparently. Where have you left the other one, my friend? Your trades are as useless as ever. I genuinely cannot find his other llama. This is really quite strange. I have taken a look around the area, and it does not seem to be anywhere. So, I don't know, maybe he just needs the one now. But anyway, enough about the Wandering Trader. We actually have a solution to this, and we're going to find out more after the break. So I was able to figure out most of this stuff on my own with what I already knew about zero-ticking pistons. I kind of reverse engineered this setup from the previous videos we covered about Ilmango's zero-tick bamboo farm and the cactus farm that we used for our XP smelter, that kind of stuff. But this bit here really stumped me for a while, until I ended up watching a video by Mumbo Jumbo, who's used these in his concrete maker, which I will link in the description, and it's actually kind of simple. All you need to do is move this section out one more block to account for having a little bit more space in the design. We need to have the redstone wire wrap around up here, and then it actually steps up 2 blocks up here into a solid block. And I believe the solid block here is kind of necessary to conduct the redstone power, because the glass here I don't think can be powered. It can have redstone on top of it, but it cannot be strongly powered. And what this does is it directly powers these 2 pistons and the 2 pistons below it. So now when we have this line of bookshelves coming through like so, we should start to see them being zero-ticked into place once they reach down there. Yes, there we go. You can see it happening. And once it goes through to the next one, unfortunately, that is where things start to lock up. And that is to do with how we're powering this. Basically, anytime a block comes into place here, it is powering this with a signal strength of 15 coming from this block of redstone. And while that's enough for one piston to fire here, it fires the second one as well. But then when this one gets full, unfortunately, that permanently locks this piston here in place. So we're going to have to employ a slightly different strategy here, and that requires us to get a couple of furnaces. The furnaces, when we place them here instead of the redstone block, are going to be able to output power thanks to the fact that we're using comparators here. And what we're going to do is open up this furnace, take a decent amount of sticks, and input them into the smelting slot here without having any fuel. We don't want anything to happen to the stuff in here. We just want it to act as a container that's producing a high enough redstone signal. Because of course, as we know from building our storage system here, this line here is going to receive the strongest, most direct redstone signal. And of course, once it gets to a signal strength of 1, it's not going to pass to either of the ones next to it. So once this gets to a signal strength of 1, powering this set of pistons here, it's not going to affect the one alongside it. And so I think when we get to about 54 or 55 items, there we go, 55 is the magic number. You will see that set of pistons activate and no other set. So for example here, when this gets filled up, it doesn't lock off that piston next to it, allowing that piston to receive the next line of books when it comes through without locking the system up at all. That piston will fly up into the air for a bit, but you don't have to worry too much about that. Likewise, when we put 55 of an item into this one, the same happens to the set of pistons next to it, and we can basically have this going down the line for as long as we want, allowing each individual set of pistons to fire in turn thanks to the 55 items placed in the furnace. And now I've just broken it by placing a piston in the wrong place. But you get the idea. Basically, we are going to build this up in the air, and that is going to allow us to zero-tick each set of bookshelves down individually in a row in a tileable setup without having to worry too much about having the thing spaced out, which is going to mean walls of books descending from the sky, getting blown up by the TNT, and collected up here as books in this item hopper. I hope that makes sense, because the next step is to go ahead and build this entire thing. The way we're going to build it, though, is with the furnaces on the inside, creating a kind of ring in the center, and that's where we're going to be building the TNT duplicator, because the cool thing about furnaces as well, a way they are actually really, really useful for this, is that furnaces cannot be moved by slime blocks or by pistons, because in Java Edition they are a container and containers can't be moved. That actually allows us to ring the slime block TNT duplicator with a whole bunch of furnaces, and that's going to mean they can also be used to align the TNT as it falls, making sure it falls in the dead center of the farm and destroys all of the bookshelves we want it to destroy. I can describe this for you guys all I want, but I may as well go ahead and build this thing, and I might also have to defend myself from llamas now, because I think I just hit that guy by accident. Yep, he's spitting at me now. I can't believe this. The indignity. Control your llama, sir, wherever the heck you are at this point. And that's the first stage done. So this P-shaped section of bookshelves here is being zero-ticked around by each of these sets of pistons here. The only one I had to do, the second piston underneath, was this one in the corner, but anytime we place a book into the system, I'm going to try and take all of these down. Now I was just using them to frame it all out, but yeah, anytime we put a book into the system like that, it's going to get pushed around super fast, and then we need to set up the rows of pistons that are going to be facing downwards, and we're going to do that with a ring of furnaces in the center here, so that every part of the circuit is kind of on the outside, so that the redstone is protected from any TNT blasts. And for some reason, this piston isn't always firing, so maybe we need to do the same on this side. Maybe we need to put it under here instead. Perhaps that will help. There we go. For some reason, the one underneath is working now, where the one on the top was doing this before. So I don't know, maybe there's some kind of quirk to that I'm not quite understanding. But yes, each of those should now be zero-ticking them around, and yeah, plenty of fast action going on here. Oh, unfortunately, yeah, when the whole thing jams up like it has done here, unfortunately, it does knock off the redstone dust there, so you have to be a little bit careful to make sure this whole thing doesn't jam up. Now, this square section here is basically 7 by 7. There are strips of 5 bookshelves along each side, give or take that first side where the books are making their entrance in the first place. And the problem with that is we're only going to be able to move 3 of them at once, because of course if we imagine placing the furnaces in here, we need a space for the comparators to go, and the comparators won't be able to power this bookshelf and this bookshelf on any kind of diagonal. But that's fine, because this one here is actually being stopped from moving by this block that we've got the redstone torch on, so actually we don't need that many at all. And just for the sake of appearances, I'm actually going to turn all of these furnaces so they're facing inwards and you can't see the furnace spot on the outside, but trust me, they are there. So we're going to ring the top of this in glass like so. We're going to place the comparators facing outwards into these bookshelves, and then we're going to load these furnaces up with stuff. And since I have a ton of them left over from previous projects, smooth stone slabs seem to fit the bill. We want 55 in there, 56 will do. It's easier to get hold of that just by right-clicking a couple of times like so, and you'll notice that conveniently each of these corner furnaces is actually powering 2 of the comparators here, so that's kind of economical, I suppose. Using these smooth stone slabs is also kind of a good move, considering that they are not anything that can be smelted into anything else. So even if we accidentally put some fuel in the fuel slot here, nothing's going to happen to it. It won't be affected in any way, so it's not going to mess up any of these comparators. The next thing, of course, is to make sure the pistons are in place and set up the redstone on the opposite side. You don't need to use glass for this section. The only thing that is required at this point is to make sure that you do not place a solid block here, because that's going to cut off the redstone from traveling up onto the next layer of blocks. If you want to use slabs for this, that's actually fine, because the slabs will still transfer redstone current up while not blocking it off from it coming down, but we do need to make sure that each of these is fully powered at the top here, which is going to mean a full block there. But that should be absolutely fine. We can build this setup all the way around the outside, and then we'll remove the books to make sure they're not powered as the next stage begins. But just to give you an idea of how quickly this is going to work, we should be able to see the books coming out from the bottom of there. If I just hold down right-click over here, that's absolutely perfect. I should take the shield out of here so that it doesn't keep blocking occasionally when the system has a bit of a lag hiccup. There you go. You can see this massive wall of books appearing there. We're going to drop TNT directly through the middle of this ring of furnaces, which is going to be easier said than done, but we're going to give it our best try. And then all of the bookshelves down at the bottom are going to get destroyed, making room for more, just like it does with our concrete converter. And once these pistons can no longer push anymore, any further books that we input into the system are just going to continue around to the next set of pistons. So it is actually a really efficient system, and it doesn't seem to jam up at all when I've tried this in creative. So this is all now set up, and I've run a few books through it already. It seems to be working just fine. In fact, I had to go and trade a few more books before we'd actually be able to fill the farm up to capacity, because, like I said, that's a lot of bookshelves. That is roughly going to be about 12 bookshelves, 13 bookshelves per column. Obviously, we're not going to be able to explode all of them at once, and the explosion part is the bit I am having a little bit of trouble with. So right now, what we're going to do is have the TNT fed into this tube here that's going to drop straight down through the furnaces and explode somewhere down there. The problem being that TNT duplicators are a little bit inconsistent in where exactly they place the primed TNT, and that is something I'm going to try and resolve using some water streams. I think that's probably the best way I can work out to do it for now. I'm sure there is a better way, and I'm sure people will let me know in the comments, but for now, I think I have a version that will work for the short term at least. The main problem being that I need to make sure it's clear of all of these pistons and redstone pieces because I don't want any of those to mess with the mechanism, but I think up here should be good. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a couple of water streams feeding into this way. Like, yeah, I think that's going to work out. One thing to bear in mind is that you need to make sure these aren't sticky pistons, otherwise this is going to pull these blocks away. These are going to be the ones that hold up the water streams. And around the outside of this, we're going to need a few more furnaces. I might have to go and craft some more in a minute because this section here is going to require a few non-pushable blocks. And furnaces are kind of my go-to block for that right now because they're nice and easy to make. All you need is 8 cobblestone. We're also going to need to stack them up a little bit high here because we do not want the TNT to escape any other way than down this tube here. And TNT has a habit of placing in a slightly different direction than you intend it sometimes. In fact, when I did this in a creative test world, I only needed a 2-block long water stream here, so we're going to rope that off with furnaces and have it all flow towards this bit here, which is blocked off with a sign to make sure the water doesn't fall all the way down to the bottom here, and that is probably going to work out just fine. The point being, of course, that we're going to build our TNT duplicator here. So we're going to have the coral fan there, we're going to have the TNT there, we will need a wall at the top here, and then off to one side from that, we're going to have the second L shape of slime with a detector rail and a minecart. Going to put the cobblestone wall there. That should be good to go. Now we just need a sticky piston and a block with a lever on it attached to the side here. So let's throw a stone brick block there temporarily, add the lever to this, and the TNT is going to end up spawning in one of 2 spots. It's either going to be down there in the water on this block, or it's going to be down there in the water on this block. The unfortunate thing about that being that it is going to fall with 2 very different timings. So we're going to have to figure that out in a second. But first, yeah, let's get the sticky piston on the block there. And I will place a block of obsidian above the hopper down here, because hopefully what this should do is prevent the TNT from falling all the way down the bottom here and exploding this hopper. Obviously, the water around here would protect us from any other kind of damage, but I do want to make sure that the obsidian can prevent the TNT from falling too far. Obsidian can block any explosion damage from hitting blocks below the level where the obsidian is placed, so we're going to have to make it the lowest point, basically at the bottom of where these bookshelves are, and I think that should work out just fine. Now let's remove the blocks above the hopper so it's got room for some of these books to fall in there once they get destroyed. I'll just check I built the TNT duplicator the right way. It looks like I have. The rail is facing the correct direction, which is perfect. Now, okay, the thing is primed. All we should need to do is pull this lever. It'll dispense a piece of TNT. That should fall down through the system, and hopefully it explodes once it's past all of these blocks. It should explode somewhere around the middle there, or the lowest it should explode is on that obsidian block there. Let's give this a try then. Moment of truth, cross your fingers. 1, 2, 3, pull the lever. Okay, that has spawned in the last possible place it could, and it exploded, and it does not seem to have blown up any of my redstone. That's good news. I hope that is consistent, because obviously there are chances for it to explode with a random element to the explosion radius. But no, that has gone remarkably well. Of course, there are some books littering around at the outside here. That's 9, 12. How many we got? 21, 24. And in the middle here, 2 stacks. 2 stacks of books and a little bit extra. That is all going to get converted into emeralds once we're back in the trading hall. We have a few resting on the top there, which would probably end up being destroyed, which is a shame, but hopefully that should be an outlier case here. I am really happy the timing of that worked out, because aligning TNT is really awful, but the fact that it has to move so slowly in the water stream beforehand is also a bit of a pain. Let's see if we can try that one more time and see if we get... Yeah, we got the second position that time. It actually exploded on top of the obsidian because it spawned a block over and fell down that water stream a lot more quickly. But with that piece of obsidian there shouldn't be too much variation in where the TNT falls. It should land there, and the results will be just as we expected. It's just going to explode and take out the bottom set of books. Not bad. Okay, now we need a clock that we can have this set up to. Probably just an etho hopper clock with 2 hoppers, 2 comparators, sticky pistons, and a redstone block, just triggering this every now and again, because this farm is going to fill up super quickly. Like, really, all we need to do is stand here without a shield and hold down the right mouse button, and the books are just going to absolutely fly around this thing until it fills up completely. If we wanted to, we could hook up this redstone torch to a dispenser or a dropper that would refill my hand with bookshelves one at a time, kind of like we do in the concrete maker, so we don't have to worry too much about going back into my inventory every time I need a new stack. But yeah, this thing is now completely full up. Let's see if we can get it to capacity, and I also don't want to overfill it because chances are that would start breaking this section here and we'd get a couple of bookshelves lost as a result. But nope, that should be 100% full, at which point we should just be able to activate the TNT duper one more time. And once again, hopefully this does not blow up. Boom, there it goes. That one seemed like it hit the bottom, and all of those books, aside from the ones around the outside, go into the middle. Now, the ones around the outside, we can just expand the water pool down there, or we can set up a sort of collection tray around the bottom, as long as it's not going to be affected by the TNT. It does seem like it is falling down there more often than not, but the prime momentum it has does end up kind of random. But luckily for me, yeah, it does not seem to have disturbed any of the redstone components around here. I've lit up the area around the outside of here so I can not get too much interference from mobs, and look at that. The hopper is absolutely chock full of books. I collected up a few more from around the outside as well. All of that can get converted into emeralds, and that's 5 stacks of emeralds right there for us. The farm is a little bit silly, I will admit. Like I said at the start of this episode, you really don't need to do this when you can just set up a haste beacon with an efficiency axe and just chop all of the bookshelves with something that doesn't have silk touch. But to me, this is kind of a road test for the type of farm I would like to design in future. We can use this as a concrete maker design that's going to be a little bit more efficient than the concrete maker I've already built over at the Alchemist's Guild, and we can modify that one so that it has this kind of technology. The zero ticking and the TNT duplicator can get involved here. But this, this is going to be an incredibly lucrative machine, and more than anything, it's just kind of fun to use. So the last thing I'm going to do today is set up a very quick etho hopper clock just to refresh your memories about how these work and how we're going to use one to time the TNT drops from this section of the farm. It shouldn't really be too complicated. We just need to have this kind of U shape, this very shallow U shape of stone bricks here. We're going to have a redstone dot on either side there and there, 2 comparators facing into those blocks. In the center, we want a hopper there and a hopper there. These two need to be facing into each other and loaded up with a suitable quantity of items. And because we're using books for this, I'm just going to put 16 books in there for now. We can adjust the amount in here if we want to adjust the timings, and that's already set off 1 TNT just to explode down there in the farm. I've crafted the rest of that redstone back into a redstone block that's just going to sit on top of these hoppers, and we'll put a sticky piston there and a sticky piston there, and that's going to lock one hopper while the contents transfer into that hopper, and then when it locks the other side, that's when the TNT should fire. And so now every time this redstone here pulses, which it should do in just a second once the hopper clock goes back around, it should activate the TNT duplicator. Yes, it will do that. The TNT slides to the end there, falls down into the farm gets exploded, and then it retracts after the next cycle of the hopper clock. So that's actually going to be pretty slow right now, but that should be fine. Should allow me plenty of time to throw some more books into the farm here. So while I'm filling this whole thing up, the hopper clock is kind of charging, I guess, and oh, okay, gosh, yeah, I think we might have lost a piece of glass there. That's unfortunate, but I think we should be able to resolve that. Maybe if we use some more blast-proof material than glass underneath here, if we use obsidian or something like that, that won't break like the glass does. Yeah, that should be fine. That's what I was afraid of, but thankfully the damage is minimal. Looks like it's taken out a couple of blocks here and on the other side just because the TNT exploded a little higher than I was expecting. And all we need to do to switch this clock on and off is just to fix a lever to this block here, which is going to permanently power this sticky piston regardless of what the hoppers in here are doing. And so yeah, like I said, I should just need to replace some of the glass underneath there that the comparators are resting on with a slightly more blast resistant block, and as long as they don't break, I don't think the comparators should break either. And just look at all the books I'm now able to trade with my librarians. From the few stacks of books that we traded with them, we have a whole bunch to trade back, and these guys will give me an emerald for every single one, so we're looking at multiple stacks of emerald blocks here, which is very, very cool. Wow, it feels like it took me longer to trade those than it took to actually get them out of the farm. And now, yes, we have over a stack of emerald blocks just from that one set of trades. That was absolutely incredible. That was just a few stacks of bookshelves, and it turned out so many books, which in turn becomes so many emeralds. And of course, we can trade those emeralds and those books back to these librarians for some pretty great book trades. I do still need to re-zombify and cure some of these librarians, so they're still giving us the tip-top trades. But seriously, some protection books, some channeling books, some silk touch and infinity is really... That's going to be so good. Besides that, of course, these librarians are going to be able to trade us glass. And I want so much glass, so it's going to be really, really useful having tons of emeralds to score some glass off of these guys. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. I do hope you enjoyed today's book farming episode. Leave a like on it if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.